Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to PSP Workshops. My name's Keir Hutchinson. I work for PSP Ottawa, and I'm currently working out of CFS Leitrim. Today we're going to be talking about Pnf stretching, or as it's more well known, Proprioceptive Neuromuscular Facilitation stretching techniques. So for today, we're going to start off with a brief introduction. We're going to go over what Pnf stretching really is, as well as a quick review of muscular contractions, just so we're all on the same page when it comes to explaining these types of stretches. After that, we're going to get into a history and origins of where this stretching technique came from and how it's evolved over the years. After that, I'll explain how it works with a practical demonstration of how all three stretches apply to the hamstring muscle groups. I'll be bringing in one of my coworkers to show you how it best works with a partner. From there, we're going to explore a couple other stretches, so for the chest and for the groin, and how you can perform them with a partner or on your own. So I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget, smash that like button, comment down below if you have any questions, and subscribe for future content. Today we're going to start off by quickly going over what Pnf stretching really is. As we deal with mostly military populations on a daily basis, we come across lots of acronyms that people seem to use, but sometimes don't necessarily know what they mean. Pnf is a perfect example in the fitness industry. So Pnf stands for Proprioceptive Neuromuscular Facilitation. Today we're going to be how it applies in a stretching background. So Pnf stretching usually involves a partner to help take you into a passive movement, and then it also involves active muscle contractions. Through these two movements, we increase flexibility. Before we get into how it actually works for the hamstring muscle group, we're going to quickly review muscle contraction types. So I'm going to quickly show you with the bicep as well as the hamstring. So to start off with the bicep curl, you have a eccentric muscle action where you have contraction as well as muscle lengthening. At the bottom, you have that isometric contraction. There's no change of length, but the muscle is still turned on. Then that last movement, that concentric, where you really feel that pump, muscle length is shortening, still under contraction. As I said, today we're really going to be focusing on the hamstrings, so I'm going to explain it with that example as well. So we'll just take a stiff leg deadlift position, and again we start by moving through that eccentric muscle action, that lengthening. Then we come to the bottom where there's still a contraction but no change of length. We're now in an isometric position, and then squeezing the glutes to extend the hip is that concentric muscle action where you have the shortening of the muscle group. Those are three words you often hear thrown around the gym, but it's just important whether you're working with tempo work, whether we're talking about Pnf stretching. Very important just so that the individual knows how to perform the movement. Now that we've described Pnf stretching and we've reviewed the three muscle actions, we're going to get into a brief history that's going to lead us into some pros and cons behind Pnf stretching techniques. So proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation originally developed as a neuromuscular rehabilitation program. This looked to help relax muscles of an increased tone or activity. Practitioners found that it was so successful and so efficient This moved from a rehab program quickly into athletics and sports. And again, that kind of covers the biggest pro, is that practitioners find that Pnf stretching helps inhibit muscles a little bit better than passive static stretching. So it's just a little bit more efficient to help relaxing that muscle group you're looking to stretch and increase its flexibility. The biggest con with Pnf stretching is that a lot of the stretches and movements require two people. Having that partner to get the athlete into a passive range of motion is one of the big aspects of Pnf stretching. And although you can modify some movements to do on your own, it is best to have that second person. Unfortunately, that training partner isn't necessarily accessible, so towards the end of the video, we will go over how you can perform some of these stretches on your own. Now that we've given a brief description of what Pnf stretching is, we've gone over its origins and why practitioners really like this stretching technique. Next, we're going to talk about how it works, the mechanisms behind how it works, and how those mechanisms lead to an increase in flexibility. Once we've talked about that, we're going to move on to our three types of Pnf stretching. The hold, relax, the contract, relax, and the hold, relax with agonist contraction. After that, we'll get into our practical assessment with my coworker to go over how we can apply each of those stretches for the hamstring muscle groups. So before we get into that, during the Pnf stretch, 3 specific muscle actions are used to facilitate the passive stretch. Both isometric and concentric muscle actions of the antagonist muscle, so the muscle being stretched, are used before a passive stretch. From there, this helps achieve autogenic inhibition. What does that big word means? Pretty much, it just means that we're looking for relaxation in the muscle group being stretched. A concentric muscle action of the agonist muscle, called an agonist contraction, is used during the passive stretch of the antagonist to achieve reciprocal inhibition. Unlike autogenic inhibition, reciprocal inhibition is a relaxation in the muscle that opposes the muscle being stretched. The isometric muscle action is referred to as the hold, and the concentric muscle action as contract. Each technique also involves a passive and static stretch that is referred to as relax. Now that we've gone over the mechanisms behind Pnf stretching and how those mechanisms lead to an increase in flexibility, we're going to go over the 3 types of Pnf stretch. I know the mechanisms were a little complicated, but hopefully once we go over the 3 types of Pnf stretches, you'll have a little bit more clearer understanding of how it works. It is more basic than the science explains, I promise. So we're going to start off going over the hold, relax style of Pnf stretch. This is the most basic, not necessarily the most efficient. So during this stretch, you're ideally going to have that partner. The partner is going to perform a 10-second pre-stretch on the athlete at mild discomfort. So we're looking at about a 7 out of 10 stretch sensation. After that 10 seconds is up, the partner is going to apply external but consistent force for 6 seconds on the athlete. All the athlete does here is resist that movement, so you get that isometric muscle action. No change in length, but the muscle is contracting. After that, we finish off that type with the athlete in a relaxed position in a deeper stretch than your starting position. 3 nice simple steps: passive pre-stretch, active stretch in the middle, relaxation at the end that helps push that final stretch into a deeper magnitude. Next, we move to our contract, relax type of PNF stretching. This is similar, but slightly different. It still begins with that 10-second pre-stretch at mild discomfort. Again, we're looking for that 7 out of 10. From there, the partner will apply an external force on the athlete. Again, but instead of a consistent force, it's slightly less, and the athlete needs to overcome that force, creating a concentric muscle action. Just slight movement is involved there. You're not taking the muscle through a full range of motion, just a slightly reduced range of motion with muscular contraction. We finish our second type off similar to the first type. The athlete relaxes and that stretch is pushed deeper, finishing off with a greater magnitude than that initial 10-second pre-stretch. So just slightly different than the first one. Our hold relax more focuses on that isometric contraction in the middle, where the contract relax focuses on the concentric muscle action. This leads us to our last type, the most effective but the most complicated. So if you are just learning this or trying it yourself, I would start off with that hold relax before moving to the hold relax with agonist contraction. It's really good to have a trained professional or a practitioner performing this movement, as they can walk the athlete through each movement. So to go over this one, it starts with the same 2 steps as the hold relax. So we begin with that 10-second pre-stretch at mild discomfort. Again, we're looking for that 7 out of 10 range. Partner then applies external consistent force for 6 seconds. Athlete resists the movement, causing that isometric muscle action. So we've got those first same 2 steps as our hold and relax, but where it switches and changes up, where things get a little complicated, is the next step. A concentric muscle action of the agonist is used in addition to the passive stretch to add stretch force. So in a hamstring example, in the final stage of that stretch, the athlete would flex their quadricep muscle to assist the stretch force on the hamstring. This example is where we get that autogenic and reciprocal inhibition. For today, I have my coworker Jordan Springer here. He's brand new to PSP Ottawa, and I look forward to working with him. So I'm going to take him through these 3 types of PNF stretches, describing what I'm doing as I go. So I'm going to get Jordan to relax on his back, relax everything as much as possible, and I personally like to have a strap around the massage table just so I can lock one of their legs down. So Jordan, I'm just going to ask you to slip your left leg into the strap. Get that strap nice and tight, but not too snug on the leg. Now I'm going to be working on the right leg today. I'm going to take you through all 3 styles of PNF stretches, and then Jordan's going to demo those 3 same stretches, those 3 same types of stretches on his left leg with a resistance band. So if you do have access to that training partner, take advantage of it. Other things like bands and elevated boxes are great for stretches as well. So starting off with our hold relax, I'm going to take Jordan into that 10-second pre-stretch at mild discomfort. Make sure to communicate with your partner. So I'm going to instruct him to keep that knee straight but not overextended. I'm going to push that leg into a nice deep hamstring stretch, and whenever he feels that 7 out of 10, he's going to tell me to stop. So we've found that mild discomfort point. We're going to hold that stretch for about 10 seconds. Doesn't have to be right on 10, but right around 10 is most efficient. From there, all I'm going to tell him to do is resist my movement. So he pushes into me, little bit of force, he's trying to push his leg down, I'm just holding it up for 6 seconds. I then tell him to relax, and I can push that leg a little bit deeper, still staying within that mild discomfort, 7 out of 10 zone. How's that feel, Jordan? So, from there, you had that passive pre-stretch, and then you push that leg even deeper at the end. Next up, we're going to move on to the contract relax. So we're going to stay on that leg. We're going to do very similar method. We just have that concentric muscle action instead of isometric. So again, he's getting looser as we go, but he knows what we're looking for. So I take that leg again into that passive pre-stretch, 7 out of 10. You can already tell it's a little bit better than our first round. How's that there? We hold it 10 seconds. You're going to then apply that same force, just a little less, so he can actually concentrically move that hamstring. So it's been about 10 seconds. I instruct him to push against me. He slightly moves just a little bit. We get some concentric muscle action, relax, and then I can push that leg even deeper into the stretch. How's that feel? Again, you'd hold that end range of motion, that end stretch, for about 30 to 45 seconds, but that end position should be deeper than the position we started in. So we've now gone over our hold, relax, our contract, relax. The only difference is that middle step is the first one, we've got that isometric contraction. Second option, we have that concentric muscle action. The next one, our hold, relax. He's going to squeeze that quad in that last phase of the stretch. So it starts the same way. I lift his leg into position. We start with that 10-second passive pre-stretch at mild discomfort. How's that feel, Jordan? He's in that 7 out of 10. We're going to hold for 10 seconds. From there, again, we're just resisting the movement with that isometric contraction. I apply force, I tell him to push against me for about 6 seconds. Relax. Then I tell him to relax, push deeper, as well as squeezing that quadricep. Lets him get even deeper into that stretch. So that final stretch is a greater magnitude compared to where we started off. Again, holding that end range for about 30 to 45 seconds, and then slowly assisting the athlete out of the movement. For the next demonstration, Jordan is going to be performing these 3 types of Pnf stretching by himself using a nice heavy resistance band. Going to do the same thing, walking him through, but he's going to demo how you could do it if you were on your own. We now have his right leg anchored down with that strap, again not too tight but nice and snug, and then he's got the resistance band around his midfoot, just around the ball of the foot is perfect too. Throughout this whole stretch he's going to keep a little bit of ankle flexion just to make sure the band stays on his foot but doesn't slip off. So we're going to start with that nice basic hold, relax. Jordan's going to pull himself into that hip flexion, finding that 10-second pre-stretch at mild discomfort. How's that feel, Jordan? Perfect. He's going to hold there for 10 seconds. From there, he's got to use a little bit of upper body for this second part. He's going to pull in with his upper body, and he's just going to resist it. So the hamstrings are contracting, but they're not changing length. So he's got that isometric contraction for 6 seconds. Relax, and now you see he can pull a little deeper. It's not much, but that couple inches does make a big difference. Again, he would hold that final stretch for 30 to 45 seconds. From there, he'd slowly relax that leg, bringing it back down, making sure not to move too fast. So again, that's how you would perform the PNF for the hamstring group specifically, if it's just yourself. Next up, we move on to our contract relax example. So Jordan begins the same way, lifts that leg, finds that passive pre-stretch, holds for 10 seconds. Now the work the upper body is doing is going to be a little less than our first example. He holds with that external force, but he resists it slightly and that leg comes down a little bit. He's got that concentric muscle action, 6 seconds, then he relaxes and he can bring that leg even deeper into that hamstring stretch. Same as your first one, he's going to hold that final stretch 30 to 45 seconds. Slowly relax the leg, bring it back down. Those are the 3 steps of your contract relax method. Now we get on to our final example, the hold with agonist contraction. Again, Jordan gets into that passive pre-stretch. Band is nice here. It just lets his upper body do a lot less work as compared if you were holding the back of the leg or something like that. And it keeps his spine in a nice stable position. After that 10-second pre-stretch, he's going to hold that external consistent force for 6 seconds, finding that isometric contraction. After 6 seconds, he then relaxes but squeezes his quad to provide a little bit more stretch force for the hamstring. Same as your first 2 types, he's going to hold that position at a greater magnitude than that first 10-second pre-stretch for 30 to 45 seconds. Yeah, you can relax from there, Jordan. So as you can see, there is a pattern. All of them start with that 10-second mild discomfort pre-stretch, some sort of muscle action through the final phase, and then a relaxation into a deeper stretch in the final phase of the movement. The only one that's slightly different is that agonist contraction, that final type where you activate the opposing muscle group to help the muscle group under tension stretch deeper. For today, we specifically picked the hamstrings just because we find among military personnel, this is an area of the body that is ignored in a lot of people's training. They become tight from a lot of ruck marching, a lot of running, a lot of sitting all day. So we find this is the most effective way to stretch your hamstrings to improve performance. As I stated in the intro, that static passive stretch is very beneficial as well, but some research has found that Pnf stretching leads to that muscle inhibition faster than a passive static stretch. Next up, we're going to move on to some Pnf stretches for other areas of the body. So we're going to show you a groin stretch as well as a shoulder stretch. I'm going to try to show you the 2 stretches, first with a partner, second just by yourself. The next stretch we're going to show you is a groin stretch with a partner with our Pnf stretch. For the next 2, so for the groin and for the shoulders or chest, we're going to stick with our first type of Pnf stretch, that most basic hold relax. It's not necessarily the most efficient. You get that deep efficiency with the hold relax with agonist contraction, but for anyone beginning or learning how to introduce Pnf Stretch into their training, your hold relax is going to be the most basic and your best bet. So again, I've got Jordan. He's on the stretch table, spine is in a nice, safe, neutral position, feet are just in a butterfly position. So for this stretch, again, we start off with that 10-second pre-stretch. All I'm going to do is apply a little bit of pressure on the inside of his knees. I push him into that stretch. It's not much, make sure you're communicating. He tells me when he's reached that 7 out of 10. I hold here for that 6 seconds. I then instruct him to resist my force. He pushes against me. 6 seconds, and then I tell him to relax, and he should be able to push a little bit deeper. With the groin, it's not much, but it is significant. I would then hold here for 30 to 45 seconds. After that 30 to 45 seconds, assist your partner out of that stretch just by bringing their knees together. For that stretch, I know it gets a little awkward, I know it gets a little personal, so we're going to show you how to do it against the wall with a pair of kettlebells that you don't need the partner for. It's less awkward if you're not comfortable working with that person, and you can do it by yourself if that training partner isn't available. For the individual groin stretch, it's best to set yourself up against a wall or an immovable object. Again, Jordan's in that butterfly position, soles of the feet together. He's going to pick up the kettlebells, put those kettlebells on his knees in a comfortable position. If you have a mat or a pad, it's a perfect way to use that. And he's just going to apply a little bit of force, pushing down, finding that pre-stretch at mild discomfort. When he finds it, he's going to hold for 10 seconds. From there, he's going to apply a little bit of force downward with his hands and resist it with the knees. You can tell he's contracting. Hold for 6 seconds and relax. And you notice he can sink just a little bit deeper into that passive groin stretch. He would hold that final phase for 30 to 45 seconds. The last stretch we're going to demo for you today is a chest stretch. So first we're going to show you with a partner, and then how you can incorporate this into your stretch routine by yourself. So Jordan's going to be in a kneeling position. I'm going to just instruct him to interlace his hands behind his head and keep the elbows nice and wide. All I'm going to do here is gently apply force backwards on the elbows to lengthen those pec muscles. How's that stretch, Jordan? Perfect. We reach that passive pre-stretch. Hold for 10 seconds. After that 10 seconds, I instruct him to contract the chest, pull the elbows together. Just resist. There's no movement going on in his pec. Hold for 6 seconds. Relax. And then I can slowly pull him deeper into that pec stretch. Same as all the others, we hold that final phase of the stretch 30 to 45 seconds. Again, assist the partner out of it. Now he's going to demo for you how he would do the stretch by himself. So it's perfect in a door frame. We just have a mobile squat rack here. He's going to set up his hand just above the shoulder with the elbow lateral to the shoulder. He then pushes himself into the stretch, slightly rotates away from it, finds that mild discomfort stretch sensation. Right about there. He would hold for 10 seconds. And obviously you want an immovable object because he's going to apply a little bit of force. He then starts pushing into it, resists the movement. It's an immovable object, so he's not getting any concentric muscle action, all isometric. After 6 seconds he relaxes and can just push a little deeper. So he's getting that nice deep stretch through the front of the pec. And you might feel this one in the front of the shoulder just a little bit. Again, you hold for 30 to 45 seconds to finish off that final stretch. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today, and I really hope you learned a thing or two. Again, I know this word, proprioceptive, neuromuscular, facilitation, stretching techniques, is a marathon to say, but in principle, it is very efficient, and it does the job of improving flexibility without taking a massive chunk out of your day. So again, I know the science behind it might be a little intense and intimidating, but once you break down the steps of each type of PNF stretch, you really start to see how basic it is and how you can incorporate it into your own stretching regime. So again, just to summarize, you're using passive movements and active muscle actions to act as a mechanism to increase flexibility. Each type of PNF stretch consists of 3 steps. All of them begin with a 10-second passive pre-stretch at mild discomfort. We then get into some sort of muscle activation throughout the 2nd step, consistently held for 6 seconds, whether it's a concentric or isometric contraction. Finally, we end with the athlete or person being stretched relaxing for an extended period of time deeper in the stretch. The only one that's slightly different is that agonist contraction, where you have muscle contraction of an opposing muscle group in that final step. So again, 3 steps, nice and easy to follow. Got most efficient down at the end, but most complicated to learn. Hold, relax. I definitely take advantage of in my classes or in my own training. So I would recommend getting nice and comfortable with your hold, relax PNF style before moving down the line. Again, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure to give us a thumbs up if you liked it. Comment down below if you do have any questions. We'll do our best to answer any of them. And finally, subscribe for future content. We're posting workshop once a week, so make sure to stay tuned for future videos.